Introducing Nose to Tail, a podcast where we explore the world of aviation lifecycle solutions, insights, and more. Presented by Jet Midwest.
Welcome back, everybody, to Nose to Tail. I'm Patrick Kraus with Jet Midwest. I'm here with Jack Schneider. Some of you may know him as Jack Schneider 17, aviation enthusiast and overall nut about anything having to do with airplanes. Jack, how we doing?
Pretty good today. That's a pretty good explanation of it, I would say.
Yeah, well, it's a good start, you know. Jack, why don't you give us maybe a little background of educational background and maybe what started you being enthusiastic about aviation?
Yeah. So, I guess it all started when I was really small. I mean, man, when I was 5, I just loved airplanes. I don't know why, but somehow I just kind of got hooked on them. I mean, back then I also liked trains and I also liked anything that moved. I got really excited when the bus went by. Stuff like that. But eventually it kind of evolved to the right answer, which is airplanes. I started flying when I was 12, actually. I joined Civil Air Patrol, which was a great experience. Learned a ton there, but they give you some free flying lessons. When I was 16, I soloed on my 16th birthday. I got my license at 17. And then it came time to pick a degree. I was like, okay, do I go do business or do I go do, I don't know, medical stuff or law, or do I go do my passion, which is airplanes? So I went and did my Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering at the University of Kansas. I've been doing engineering ever since then. I graduated in 2022. Spent some time at Spirit Aerosystems working on the 777 structures. And then now I'm currently at Boeing working on the fighters, doing aerodynamic engineering on the F-15, F-18, T-7, that kind of thing. So I've kind of just tried to branch off in all the different, things I can do in aviation. Kind of my dream is to eventually have my A&P, my ATP, for pilot stuff, and then also my aerospace engineering degree, so I can kind of go into all facets of aviation. I'm still trying to learn. I'm just always just curious about airplanes too. I think that's the biggest thing is I'll never not take an opportunity to learn about airplanes. So I guess that's kind of my, short background.
So it was interesting. You said the Civil Air Patrol.
Yeah.
My grandfather on my mom's side was actually the highest ranking officer in the Civil Air Patrol during World War II.
No kidding.
And he was a pilot. And he was unable to qualify for service because of some, I don't know, he had flat feet or something. There's a story there that I don't really remember. But he was the highest ranking person for the Civil Air Patrol, and their job was to ensure that folks that were coming home that were potentially wounded to the point where they wouldn't survive actually made it home.
Wow.
So that is a really interesting.
No kidding.
Small connection there.
Yeah, and another connection Civil Air Patrol wise is I think my first time ever coming to Jet Midwest was 2015-ish with the Civil Air Patrol tour here. So my squadron came and toured, and I was just blown away. And ever since then, I've always been blown away by Jet Midwest and the facilities and just like what you guys do here.
Yeah, we just spent about an hour and a half doing a tour. And I think when you were here the first time, there were maybe 4 airplanes. And today, there's not even room to put very many. I don't think we could put 4 more. If they showed up, I wouldn't have room for them. So from 4 to maybe 50 is pretty awesome over the last decade.
Unreal, yeah.
Yep. And like you, it's a lot of fun. We have passion for it. You've got this awesome YouTube channel, and I watch your videos on TikTok. That's my main source of entertainment, and so I watch a lot of your content. Maybe talk through us of how you were able to turn your passion for aviation into something that you could show other people. Go through that process. I'm super curious.
So kind of a funny story how I got into this whole social media thing. I never planned on doing it. I just planned on going and being an engineer and pilot. Like I definitely want to fly jets, but anyways, that wasn't really my path. That wasn't my plan. But then back in 2021, my girlfriend at the time actually was like, I mentioned to her, I was like, man, it looks like people are blowing up on TikTok really easily. I was like, that looks so easy. Like these videos are so stupid. I bet I could do that. She's like, no, I doubt it. And so I got a TikTok account in like January 2021. And I started posting some stuff for my camera roll just for fun. Well, a week later, I had a video get 6 million views. And I was like, and I found myself overnight with, 50,000 followers. So I was like, oh my gosh, I was not planning on doing this, but I kept posting for my camera rolls, like, oh, might as well. And it kept growing. And then I ended up with like 100,000 followers on TikTok by like 6 months later. And then that's when it really kicked into gear because I ran out of stuff on my camera roll. But stuff on a camera roll, like, I did a bunch of cool projects in college. Like I was working on a jet-powered go-kart. I was working on airplane stuff. I mean, I've always been doing this kind of crazy experiment, crazy just project long before I had all the media stuff. I just did it for fun. Well, then I started saying, well, I ran out of content. So like, I need to start making content. I need to start like doing stuff with the purpose of making a video about it and still having fun and still learning, which is, kind of the theme is most of the stuff I do, I want to learn. And so I started making some crazy experiments. I found it blew up really easily on, on social media. So I turned a lawnmower into a centrifuge. Like I took the blade off of it and I welded some steel caps on the ends of it, and it pulls 1500 Gs, whatever you put in those, those tabs. And I had a GoPro in the middle so you could watch stuff get smashed. As it went around by 1500 Gs, that blew up. I had a whole bunch of stuff blow up. I made a salt fog chamber for corrosion. I did a bunch of that stuff. But it really wasn't exactly what I wanted to be in because, my passion's aviation. I was doing some of these more crazy experiments that were, I don't know, a little bit silly, but were just going crazy viral. And, my real goal though was to kind of change it into aviation. And that's what I wanted to do is aviation videos. But the problem is it's hard to make aviation videos that go viral. And it took me a little bit of learning to do that. The best segue into pure aviation content, because you look at my profile now, it's almost all pure aviation.
Right.
And I kind of like to tell people I did the bait and switch. Like I built a big following and then I switched to all aviation and then figured out how to make aviation videos blow up. It took me a while. I bought a T-37 Tweet. I kind of call it the backyard jet. I found it in Wichita. It's just a piece of junk, just a fuselage and one engine. Sat outside for 30 years. And oh my gosh, it's such a pain to work on. There's no part. It's literally horrible. The only thing about that engine that works is the fact that it spins. And it didn't do that at first. It took me a long time just to get it to spin. And that's been an ongoing project for a long time. I feel kind of bad because I should have had that thing running a long time ago. But every time I try and work on a part on it, it breaks and it doesn't work and the seals are broken. So I have to engineer my own fixes. I'm working on trying to use like a Harbor Freight power washer as a fuel pump, like stuff like that. So anyways, that blew up. I did like 200, 300 million views on that in a couple months. And so that kind of accelerated things. And from there, I ended up buying some L-29 jets, which are a lot nicer. These airplanes are actually complete. And I'm working towards getting one of them flying to show how hard the Tweet is. I've been working on that thing for on and off for a couple of years now. And the L-29 hadn't ran since 1997, but it had been sitting inside and it's 100% complete. That took me 1 day to get it running and taxi. I actually need to edit a video to put that out. I'm kind of behind on editing because I'm working full time. I have that thing running and everything, and that should be flying. Not anytime soon. I'm not a good enough pilot yet. I'm at my commercial, but I need another like 500 hours before I can actually get my type rating in that L-29. So long story short, it was a lot easier. And so here's this little simple T-37 engine that is basically just a turbocharger at this point.
Right.
And it's taken me years. The L-29 took me a day. So yeah, that's how long.
It depends on how you pick them, right?
Yeah.
I've been buying airplanes out of the desert for, 20 plus years. I have the same experience. Sometimes you get one and smooth as silk and she gets activated and ferried to where she belongs in a couple of days. And other ones take a year to rebuild and put back together. So that's awesome. I think it's funny. I love that you're a young person that's in aviation because it really is hard to get people to be passionate about flying in airplanes. The sort of the wonder, and I speak about it on my podcast every once in a while, but sort of the wonder behind what it really takes to fly and make these things go. And what we normally experience is I walk down, I go to an airport, I sit in a lobby that looks like a shopping mall. And someone says, "Oh, it's your turn," and you go get in line, and you walk down, and you walk through a tunnel, and you sit in a chair. It looks like you're in almost a school bus. It's like, okay, and you take off, you land, you go out in another shopping mall, and you don't realize what it takes to go from Kansas City to Chicago, and that airplane goes back and forth 8 times in a day.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it than just me walking out of this mall down this hallway. So it's awesome to have a young person with that much passion about it. Hopefully, your channel drives young people to say, hey, this is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
One of the other things I've really enjoyed about your videos is a change in approach. And I wish our educational system would maybe get this a little bit. You treat the aviation sector and what you're showing is a practical science.
Yeah.
Okay. And when we go to school and go to college, it's almost all a theoretical. Rarely are you actually grabbing something mechanical by my hands. And I'm going to experiment and figure out how to get this Harbor Freight tool modified to make this thing run, right? Nobody's thinking about that. They go, oh, here's the manual. I have to order this thing. Well, that thing doesn't exist anymore. No one's made one of those in 35 years. So how do you solve the problem? How do you get there? And because your mind is wrapped around it in a very practical nature, I think that is what's intriguing.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I love the most about it. And our mutual friend, Eric Hanvelt, was very much the practical mad scientist at the Jet Midwest world for 20 plus years. And if someone needed to get something modified or picked up or moved around or something, he was the guy who goes, I can figure that out. And he would just tinker with it until he got it right. And that's an awesome trait to have.
Yeah. And something that you kind of touched on inspiring people. And that's kind of one of the things that's kept me going on this whole journey of social media. I mean, for one, it helps me pay the bills at this point because I do rack up quite a bill with all the stuff that I have.
You keep leaving it in a whole bunch of different places. That's probably your challenge.
And that's one of the biggest challenges I have right now is it's spread out. But the thing that keeps me coming back is, I get lots and lots and lots of DMs from people that are, maybe in high school, and they say, hey, you kind of inspire me to go into aviation. And those kinds of messages and those kinds of things that I see are just amazing. Or when I go to Oshkosh and Sun and Fun every year, I have people come up to me all the time and just, hey, you really got me interested in aviation. Or what's also crazy is the other side of that. Like sometimes people that are way more experienced than me will come up to me at these air shows or whatever. Like I remember at Oshkosh, I had like 4 Quantet pilots that come up to me from Australia, and they're just like, knew all about all the projects and stuff. And so just the kind of inspiration is just really, really fun. And, it's really satisfying. And, I hope I can maybe inspire somebody to not even just go get into aviation, but just to like, I don't know, try some crazy project that, I kind of learned by doing. So, when I bought the T-37 engine, for instance, the reason I bought it was I just wanted to, play with a jet engine, and most people won't let you go play with their jet engine. You go to Southwest and, start playing with their jet engines or something. They're not going to like that. So, and, people think it's expensive, but really it's not. I mean, you can get an old Soviet jet for less than a nice Prius. In fact, I have a Prius and I could buy, let's see, 2 L29s for less than I paid for my Prius. So it sounds crazy. Everybody's like, oh, I can never do that. But I'm like, no, it's not that hard. Just do it and, tinker around with it and just learn by doing, I guess.
Yeah.
Granted, that doesn't, you'll fly an airplane and you learned by doing, that can be dangerous, but.
Well, I had a former colleague of mine bought a 150, Cessna 150 for 10 grand.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, is that safe? Are you going to? And he flew it from Kansas City to California. Maybe he paid someone. He might have paid a guy to fly it. Oh, I can't tell you how many stops that must have been.
Yeah.
Someone got a lot of good hours in, especially with a headwind. It's a long way to go. That's awesome. I thought it was funny. It's a nice Prius. You have experience with bad Priuses?
No, actually I don't. But, actually, to be honest, I'd say you could get a nice Soviet jet for medium Prius. Not even nice. Maybe a 20,
There you go.
2010 or something. People are shocked when they find out how cheap these things actually are. And we can find a good deal or you can find a bad deal. It just, if you look around and, not necessarily saying you go get an old jet, but like just playing with airplane parts. I like doing it, and it's kind of kept me entertained all these years.
I told you a story earlier that my wife says, if anything that I bring home from the office, any aviation memorabilia or some chunk of something that I think is really awesome, she says, it's got to stay in your office or in the closet in your office. We're going to keep it there. The rest of the house can stay pristine because you've been here to Jet Midwest. And for all of you who haven't been to Jet Midwest, it's 1.2 million square feet of aviation fun. And I have more stuff than you can shake a stick at, and another 36 acres out on the tarmac for airplanes. So I've got plenty of places to hoard my stuff here, so I don't really probably need them at home. And again, I made a little light earlier, but you literally have material and airplanes in 3 different cities following you around. There's going to be a trail to follow you around the world. Just got to follow your airplane.
Not America, because I recently moved from Wichita to St. Louis to work for Boeing. So I have a house in Wichita, which is where that tweets. That T-37 is still in the backyard there. And then my apartment in St. Louis is slowly but surely, I'm starting to get it, organized with airplane parts. And I actually took the engine from Wichita recently and brought it to the T-37 engine. Because that engine is worthless. I mean, it's got tons of pod damage. I mean, the blades are all completely shot. Like, it's a terrifying grenade. But I promise the internet it's going to run. And it's going to run eventually, no matter what it takes. And it's going to be behind a hill. I'll be a long ways away, but they're both running it when I do. But I had brought it to my apartment because I just could not get anything done on it because it's 6 hours of a drive between Wichita and St. Louis. So, I work my 9 to 5 and then on the weekend.
What? Wait a minute. Why aren't you flying?
My airplanes, I have one that flies, but the rest of them don't fly. So that's the biggest problem.
It's easy to get yourself that 150 for 10 grand and 6 hours are turning into 3.5.
That works out great though until you have thunderstorms in your path and
you got to drive.
Yeah. I've learned, I've flown all over the country, GA, I had a Bonanza for a while and, I've flown a lot, but I guess that's a long enough drive to where I would say flying is worth it. But anything less than like 3 hours, I'd say just drive it.
You go get that bottom end Prius and you just put one in each location, fly your Cessna 150.
Yeah.
We'll continue this discussion on the next episode of Nose to Tail, a podcast presented by Jet Midwest. Don't forget to please like and subscribe to our channel.